Captain Sarah Phoenix Mitchell had been officially dead for 5 years, 3 months and 17 days when her voice crackled through the emergency frequency, sending shockwaves through the North American Aerospace Defense Command. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe. It was a routine training exercise over the Pacific Northwest, or at least it was supposed to be. 2 F-22 Raptors from Joint Base Lewis McChord were running intercept drills at 35,000 feet when Lieutenant Commander Jake "Hawk" Morrison suddenly slumped forward in his cockpit. His wingman, Captain Rebecca "Viper" Chin, immediately noticed his aircraft beginning to drift. "Hawk, you copy?" "Hawk, respond." Viper's voice cut through the radio with professional urgency, but there was no response. She could see through her canopy that Morrison's head had fallen against his instrument panel. Medical emergency. Possibly GLOC, G-force-induced loss of consciousness, though they hadn't been pulling any serious maneuvers. Viper immediately switched to emergency protocol, calling into base. "Tower, this is Viper. Hawk is unresponsive. Repeat, Hawk is unresponsive. Requesting immediate emergency landing clearance and medical standby." But before the tower could respond, another voice cut through the channel, a voice that shouldn't exist. "Viper, this is Phoenix. I have visual on your position. Hawk's aircraft is losing altitude. You need to wake him now or initiate remote override. He's got maybe 90 seconds before he enters unrecoverable descent." The voice was calm, professional, and impossibly familiar to anyone who had studied Air Force history in the past decade. Viper's blood ran cold. "Who is this? Identify yourself immediately. This is a secure military channel." Her hands tightened on the controls as she scanned the sky around her. There was nothing, no other aircraft on radar, no visual contact, nothing but empty sky and clouds. "Call sign Phoenix. Serial number 4-7-7-2-9 Alpha Charlie Tango." "And Viper, there's no time for this. Use your water bottle. Throw it at his helmet. The shock might bring him back. Do it now." Viper's mind raced. "Phoenix, Captain Sarah Mitchell. The legendary pilot who had disappeared during a classified mission over hostile territory 5 years ago. Declared Kia, killed in action, when no trace of her or her aircraft was ever found. There had been a memorial service. A flag presentation to her parents. Her name was engraved on the wall of the fallen at the Air Force Academy. Phoenix was dead. But that voice, that call sign, that serial number? "Tower, confirm, do you copy that transmission?" Viper called out, still searching her instruments and the sky around her for any sign of another aircraft. "Negative, Viper. We show only 2 aircraft in your airspace." "What transmission?" The voice came again, more urgent now. "Viper. 60 seconds. The water bottle, now." Training overrode confusion. Viper grabbed her water bottle from its holder, aimed through the narrow gap between their aircraft, and hurled it with all her strength. It bounced off Hawk's canopy with a sharp crack. Morrison's head jerked up. He blinked rapidly, disoriented, his hands fumbling back to the controls. "What the Viper? What happened?" "You were out, Hawk. How do you feel? Can you maintain control?" Yeah, I think so. Jesus, my head." Morrison's voice was groggy but strengthening. "Did you just throw something at my plane?" "Affirmative. Medical emergency protocol. We're returning to base immediately." As they banked toward home, Viper couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. She scanned the horizon one more time, and for just a fraction of a second she thought she saw something. A glint of metal, impossibly high, catching the afternoon sun. Then it was gone. "Phoenix," she whispered into her mask. "If you're out there, thank you." There was no response. Just the steady hum of her engines and the vast, empty sky. Within 3 hours, Viper was sitting in a secure briefing room at Lewis McChord, facing a panel of officers she'd never seen before. They weren't from her unit. They weren't even wearing standard Air Force uniforms, just dark suits and serious expressions that screamed classified operations. The lead investigator, a woman who introduced herself only as Director Santos, placed a digital recorder on the table between them. "Captain Chin, we need you to recount everything, every word, every detail of the transmission you received. Leave nothing out." Viper recounted the incident exactly as it happened, noting the confusion on the faces across from her when she mentioned the call sign Phoenix. "That's impossible," muttered one of the men, a gray-haired officer with colonel's eagles on his civilian collar. "Phoenix has been confirmed Kia for 5 years." "Confirmed how?" Viper challenged. "Her aircraft was never recovered. Her body was never found. She was declared dead because she disappeared over denied territory and never came back. Director Santos raised a hand, silencing the room. Captain Chin is correct. The Kia status was presumptive, based on the circumstances and the passage of time. She paused, her eyes fixed on Viper. The serial number you heard, you're certain it was accurate? Yes, ma'am. I looked it up the moment I landed. It matches Captain Sarah Mitchell's service record exactly. Santos exchanged glances with her colleagues, some unspoken communication passing between them. Finally she leaned forward. What we're about to tell you is classified at the highest levels. You will repeat none of this outside this room. Understood? Yes, ma'am. 5 years ago, Captain Mitchell was flying a developmental aircraft on a classified reconnaissance mission. The aircraft was equipped with unconventional technology, stealth capabilities beyond anything in our current arsenal. When she disappeared, we assumed the worst, that she'd been shot down and the technology had fallen into enemy hands. But we found no evidence. No debris field, no distress signal, no intel chatter from hostile forces claiming a kill. It was as if she simply vanished from the face of the earth. Viper processed this information carefully. What kind of unconventional technology? That's need to know, Captain. What matters now is that if Sarah Mitchell is alive and has been operating off-grid for 5 years with that aircraft, we need to find her. Immediately. Why would she stay hidden if she's alive? Viper asked. Why not come home? The gray-haired colonel answered this time. That's what we need to determine. Either she can't come home, or she's chosen not to. The military's most advanced tracking systems were deployed across the Pacific Northwest. Satellite imagery was reviewed and re-reviewed. Radar data from every installation within 1,000 miles was analyzed for anomalies. But there was nothing. Phoenix, or whoever had used that call sign, had vanished as completely as she had 5 years ago. Viper found herself assigned to a special task force dedicated to finding Mitchell. She worked alongside intelligence analysts, satellite specialists, and behavioral psychologists trying to build a profile of where a trained pilot might hide for 5 years. She'd need fuel, Viper reasoned during one of their planning sessions. That aircraft, whatever it is, can't run on air. She'd need to refuel somewhere. A young analyst named Marcus pulled up a map of abandoned military installations across the western United States. There are dozens of decommissioned airfields. Some still have underground fuel reserves that were never fully drained. If she had the right equipment, she could access them. Check every single one, Director Santos ordered, and expand the search to Canada and Alaska. If she's been operating undetected for 5 years, she's not staying in one place. Days turned into weeks. The search yielded nothing concrete, just shadows and possibilities. But Viper couldn't shake the feeling that Phoenix was watching them, always one step ahead. Then came the second contact. It happened during another training exercise, this time over the Nevada desert. Viper was leading a formation of 4 F-22s through air combat maneuvers when her radio crackled to life on an encrypted frequency that shouldn't have existed. Viper, this is Phoenix. Don't try to trace this transmission. You won't succeed and it'll waste both our time. Viper's heart hammered in her chest. She kept her voice steady, professional. Phoenix, this is Viper. Confirm your identity. Service number and authentication code. You already have my service number. As for authentication. There was a pause. You were 9 years old when you decided to become a pilot. Your father took you to an air show at Nellis and you saw the Thunderbirds perform. The lead pilot that day was Colonel Marcus Chin, your uncle. He died 3 years later in a training accident. You wear his dog tags on every flight. Viper's hand instinctively went to her chest, where her uncle's tags rested beneath her flight suit. That information wasn't in any file. It was personal, known only to family. How could you possibly know that? Because I make it my business to know who's flying in my airspace. And because I've been watching you, Viper. You're good. Very good. You remind me of myself at your age. Phoenix, you need to come in. Whatever happened to you, whatever you've been through, we can help. You don't have to stay out here alone. The laugh that came through the radio was bitter. Alone? Is that what you think? Viper, I'm not alone. I'm exactly where I need to be, doing exactly what I need to do. What does that mean? What are you doing out there? Another pause, longer this time. When Phoenix spoke again, her voice was different, harder, edged with something that sounded like pain. 5 years ago, I discovered something during that mission. Something they didn't want discovered. When I tried to report it, I was told to stand down, to forget what I'd seen. But I couldn't. So I disappeared. And I've been gathering evidence ever since. Evidence of what? Not over the radio, Viper. Too many ears listening. But I need you to do something for me. There's a man, retired Air Force, Colonel David Harrison. He lives in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. Find him. Tell him Phoenix remembers Copper Canyon. He'll know what it means. And Viper? Trust no one in the command structure. This goes higher than you can imagine. Phoenix, wait. But the channel was already dead. Viper immediately signaled to her wingmen. Did anyone else copy that transmission? The responses were all negative. Just like before, only Viper had heard Phoenix's voice. Finding Colonel Harrison wasn't difficult. He lived in a modest cabin overlooking Lake Coeur d'Alene, a decorated veteran who'd retired 10 years earlier after a distinguished career. What was difficult was deciding whether to follow Phoenix's instructions without telling her superiors. Viper made her choice. She requested personal leave, 3 days to visit family. Then she drove the 6 hours to Idaho alone. Harrison answered his door with the cautious wariness of a man who'd lived through things he'd rather forget. He was in his 60s, gray-haired but still carrying himself with military bearing. Colonel Harrison? My name is Captain Rebecca Chin, call sign Viper. I need to talk to you about Captain Sarah Mitchell. The color drained from Harrison's face. You should come inside. His cabin was neat, organized, filled with military memorabilia and photographs from a long career. Harrison gestured to a chair and poured them both coffee with hands that trembled slightly. How much do you know? He asked finally. Only that Phoenix is alive and sent me to you with a message. Phoenix remembers Copper Canyon. Harrison closed his eyes, his jaw clenching. Dear God. She's still pursuing it. Pursuing what, sir? What is Copper Canyon? The old colonel stood and walked to his window, staring out at the lake. Copper Canyon was a black site. Off the books, off the grid. It officially doesn't exist and never did. I was stationed there for 6 months, 15 years ago before I requested transfer. What they were doing there? He shook his head. I couldn't be part of it. What were they doing? Harrison turned back to face her. Experiments. On our own pilots. Testing the limits of human endurance at extreme altitudes, in extreme conditions. Some of it was legitimate research. But some of it. He sat down heavily. Some of it crossed lines that should never be crossed. Pilots were being pushed beyond their breaking points. Some had permanent psychological damage. A few didn't survive. Viper felt sick. And the military covered it up? The program was shut down after I blew the whistle. Or at least that's what I was told. I was quietly retired with full honors and a suggestion that I keep my mouth shut for the good of national security. I thought it was over. But Phoenix discovered it wasn't. That would be my guess. If Sarah found evidence that Copper Canyon, or something like it, was still operating and if she tried to expose it. Harrison met Viper's eyes. They would have done anything to silence her. Making her disappear would have been the easiest solution. So she faked her death. Went underground. More likely they tried to kill her and she survived. Sarah Mitchell is one of the most resourceful pilots I've ever known. If anyone could evade elimination and stay hidden for 5 years, it would be her. Viper stood, pacing the room as the pieces fell into place. She's been gathering evidence. Building a case. But why reach out now? Why expose herself after staying hidden for so long? Harrison pulled a photograph from his desk drawer and handed it to Viper. It showed a younger Harrison standing with a group of pilots. Among them was a woman with sharp eyes and a confident smile. Sarah Mitchell, before she became Phoenix. Because Sarah never gives up, Harrison said quietly. Whatever she's planning, she's ready to make her move. And she's chosen you to be part of it. Viper returned to base with more questions than answers. She filed her report about the leave, a family visit, nothing unusual, but said nothing about Harrison or Copper Canyon. Phoenix's warning echoed in her mind, trust no one in the command structure. 2 days later, she was summoned to an emergency briefing. Director Santos was there, along with several high-ranking officers Viper didn't recognize. The atmosphere was tense. Captain Chin, we've had a development, Santos began. Someone has transmitted classified documents to the Washington Post, the New York Times, and 3 other major media outlets. Documents detailing illegal human experimentation programs run by the Air Force over the past 20 years. The sender identified herself as Captain Sarah Mitchell, call sign Phoenix. Viper's heart raced, but she kept her expression neutral. Has the media verified the documents? They're in the process of doing so. But Captain, here's what we haven't told you. The experimental aircraft Captain Mitchell was flying when she disappeared? It was designed for a specific purpose, high-altitude reconnaissance over denied territory. But it had another capability. It was equipped with the most advanced signals intelligence gathering system ever developed. If Mitchell has been flying that aircraft for 5 years, if she's been monitoring our communications, she has everything, Viper finished. Every conversation, every classified transmission, every piece of evidence she needs to prove the program existed. A general Viper had never seen before spoke up, his voice cold. Captain Mitchell is now considered a national security threat of the highest order. She has stolen classified technology and is attempting to damage the credibility of the United States Air Force. We need to bring her in by any means necessary. By any means? Viper repeated carefully. Are we talking about lethal force, sir? The silence that followed was answer enough. That night, Viper sat in her quarters staring at her phone. She knew what she should do: report everything to her superiors, help them find Phoenix, follow orders. That was what she'd been trained to do, what she'd pledged to do when she took her oath. But she also knew what was right. The military had experimented on its own pilots. It had covered up deaths and destroyed lives. And when someone tried to expose the truth, they tried to kill her. Now they wanted Viper to help them finish the job. Her phone buzzed. An encrypted message from an unknown number: Viper. Tomorrow 0600 hours. Desert Storm Memorial, Nellis AFB. Come alone. Viper didn't sleep that night. At 0530 she left base in civilian clothes, telling no one where she was going. The Desert Storm Memorial was a quiet place, a wall of names honoring those who'd fallen in that conflict. At this hour, it was completely deserted. She waited, scanning the area, wondering if Phoenix would actually show or if this was some kind of trap. Then she heard footsteps behind her. Viper turned to see a woman approaching, thin, weathered, with short-cropped hair and eyes that had seen too much. She wore civilian clothes, but there was no mistaking the bearing of a military pilot. Phoenix, Viper breathed. Sarah Mitchell nodded. Thank you for coming. And for not bringing company. They're looking for you. Everywhere. They've classified you as a national security threat. I know. They're probably tracking your phone right now, which is why we have about 10 minutes before this place is swarmed. Phoenix pulled out a flash drive. This contains everything, all the evidence I've gathered over 5 years. Names, dates, locations. Testimonies from survivors I've tracked down. Proof that Copper Canyon never really shut down, it just went deeper underground. She pressed the drive into Viper's hand. The media has the overview. But they need someone on the inside, someone credible, to verify it. That's you. Me? Phoenix, I'm just a pilot. I don't have the authority. You have credibility. You're decorated, respected, and you're not connected to any of this. When you come forward and confirm these documents, people will listen. It'll give the journalists the corroboration they need to publish without fear of lawsuits or national security claims. Viper looked down at the flash drive, feeling its weight, the weight of truth, of justice, of ending her career. If I do this, I'll be court-martialed. I'll lose everything. I know. Phoenix's voice was gentle. Believe me, I know exactly what it cost. But Viper, those pilots, the ones who suffered, who died, whose families were told comfortable lies, they deserve the truth. And the pilots who might be experimented on in the future deserve to be saved. In the distance, Viper heard the sound of approaching vehicles. Phoenix heard it too. You have to decide now, Viper. Give me the drive back and you can tell them I forced this meeting, that you learned nothing. Your career continues. Or keep it and do what's right no matter the cost. Viper thought of her uncle, the pilot who'd inspired her. She thought of all the pilots who'd trusted their country and been betrayed. She thought of who she wanted to be when she looked in the mirror. She closed her fist around the flash drive. Go, she told Phoenix. I'll buy you time. Sarah Mitchell smiled, the first real smile Viper had seen from her. You're a good pilot, Viper. And a better person. She started to turn away, then paused. Oh, and Viper? When they ask how I survived the crash 5 years ago, tell them the experimental aircraft's AI system saved me. It pulled me out of the spin, landed itself in the wilderness, and has been maintaining itself ever since. That technology was worth more than my life. That's why they wanted me silenced. Where will you go? Somewhere they can't find me. At least until this is over. When it's safe, I'll come home. I promise. Phoenix disappeared into the pre-dawn darkness just as the first black SUVs screeched into the parking lot. Viper stood at the memorial, the flash drive in her pocket, and waited for the consequences of doing the right thing. The congressional hearings had lasted for weeks. The media coverage had been relentless. 3 high-ranking Air Force officials had been court-martialed. 2 secret programs had been shut down permanently. Reforms had been implemented to prevent such abuses in the future. Captain Rebecca Chen had testified under oath, presenting all the evidence Phoenix had gathered. She'd been prepared for the worst: prison, dishonorable discharge, the end of everything she'd worked for. Instead, she'd been called a hero by some, a traitor by others. The military had ultimately decided not to prosecute her, fearing the public backlash. She'd been quietly reassigned to a desk job and told to keep her head down. It wasn't flying, but it was honorable. She'd done the right thing. She was reviewing maintenance reports in her office at the Pentagon when her personal phone buzzed. An encrypted message from an unknown number. "Thank you, Viper. The skies are clear now. Time to come home." Viper smiled and deleted the message. Somewhere out there, Phoenix was preparing to return from the dead, again. This time she'd be welcomed home as the hero she'd always been. And Viper? She'd keep flying in whatever way she could, knowing that truth and honor mattered more than rank or glory. Because that's what pilots like Phoenix had taught her. That's what it meant to truly serve.